So if you are experiencing bit resistance with your horse and you're trying to figure out where to go, the first thing to consider, the first question we will ask you is, what do you do with your horse? How much time do you spend riding your horse? And what kind of disposition does your horse have? So the disposition is actually the defining factor for figuring out where to start looking at bits for your horse. It's not really how much he knows technically. If he can side pass or collect or execute complicated maneuvers or flying lead changes, it's really more about his personality and his obedience. So the first question would be, on your horse's disposition, would you consider him to be on one end of the spectrum flighty and anxious, on the other end of the spectrum bold and challenging, or is he somewhere in the middle where you feel like he's a really trustworthy and honest and obedient horse and he's just having a hard time? So those personality explanations really refer to how your horse handles stress and how your horse behaves in reaction to your rein action. So the more flighty and anxious a horse is, then obviously the more you have to handle him so he feels confident. The more bold and challenging a horse is, then obviously the more you have to exert your authority over him. The more balanced and honest and trustworthy the horse is, then generally speaking, the more tongue relief they can handle. So you use it to kind of judge where on the level spectrum for miler you would start looking for a new bit. And then the second part of that disposition question is, what kind of spook does your horse have? So does he spook in place when something unusual happens, or does he spook and take off and you have a hard time controlling him? Or does he barely spook at all? So the horse's spook speaks to his self-control. And as a rider, obviously knowing your horse's degree of self-control is going to be really important to determining how much tongue relief or how much tongue pressure you might have to use with that horse. The more he spooks in place and the more honest his spook is, where he stays with you, the more tongue relief that horse can handle, because you don't have to contain him every time something unusual happens. Spooking is a totally normal horse behavior because they're a flight animal, but the degree of spook is going to tell you how much trust he has in you as a rider and your leadership, and also how much confidence he has in himself.